Thank you very much for joining us for the CSW 69 parallel event, Women and Forced Migration, addressing the challenges in promoting rights, sponsored by the World Union of Catholic Women's Organizations, their World Women's Observatory, the Scalabrini International Migration Network, and the Conrad N. Hilton Foundation. I am Mary Beth Stewart, representative of the World Union of Catholic Women's Organizations to the UN here in New York, and I shall serve as the moderator for today's session. Today we shall hear from our panel members, watch some compelling videos, and hopefully have time for some Q&A. Just a few items of business. Please ensure that your cell phone is silenced, and we have exactly 90 minutes for this session, and we shall need to vacate the room promptly at the conclusion of our event, as there is another session following ours in this room. You found the complete bios, I hope, of our great speakers on your chairs, so introductions will be quite limited to conserve our time for the purpose of the meeting. We're so pleased to offer you a panel of wonderful speakers today, whom you see up front here and on the screen. They are Mónica Santamarina, Ana Martiarena, Grace Staples, Sister Francisca Ngozi Uti, Dr. Jeanette Rincon, and Msgr Marco Formica. We look forward to hearing from them as we explore a theme that addresses what can be done to recognize and eliminate the sufferings of refugee and migrant women around the world so that their amazing potential can be realized. We shall first hear from Father Marcio Tonazio, the Executive Director of the Scalabrini International Migration Network here in New York. We're grateful to Father. Here we are.
My name is Marcio. I work at SIMN, Scalabrini International Migration Network. And first of all, we want to give thanks to World Union of Women's Organization for organizing this important side event. Thank you so much. It is a pleasure for us to share our testimony, and I just do a small introduction, but after that some priests, they will share with you what they are doing on the field, what they are preparing, working, and different activities, outcomes with women. And they are so important because they take care of the families, and many of them, they are by themselves with children. But we are so happy because in many of these countries that we are working, and the women, they have energy, they are decided to work and to learn more, and that difficulties because they are migrants or refugees, but they never give up. Something different, something because they have a special energy, the enthusiasm for themselves or for the children, but they never give up. And maybe this is the message that I want to share with you today, and give thanks to God, and give thanks all that the people in the field, they are doing every single day to support the women's project as a migrants or refugees, and to build a better world. Thank you for your participating in this meeting, and we can work together, continue working together to prepare a better world and to offer more services, activities, all that the women need to build a better world for their families. Thank you so much.
We're grateful to Father for his message of hope in this very difficult time for our migrants and refugees. We shall now hear from Mónica Santamarina, President General of the World Union of Catholic Women's Organizations. Mónica, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Maribeth. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for all of you for being with us today. The world is witnessing unprecedented levels of human mobility, with millions of women undertaking journeys as migrants or refugees. Between 20,000 and 2015, the number of international migrants increased by 41%, reaching 22 million persons, almost half of them women. Women migrants and refugees face unique and multifaceted challenges, including risks of violence, discrimination, economic hardships, and limited access to essential services. However, they are agents of change who contribute significantly to the social, economical, and cultural development of both their host and home communities. As Father Marcio just said, women never give up. This side event aims to highlight the lived experiences of women, refugees, and migrants, and to advocate for their rights while examining how the international community can better support and protect them. The event aligns with the CSW 69 theme, focusing on advancing on the recognition of equal dignity and rights for women and men, and on empowering women and girls. As 2025 marks 30 years ago, the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action was approved, and we will focus on some of the critical areas that were pointed out in that platform, particularly on violence and discrimination against women and women's rights. To discuss what are the objectives that we have for this meeting, it's first to discuss and raise awareness on the specific challenges and vulnerabilities faced by women, refugees, and migrants around the world. We want to give visibility to women involved in forced migration by presenting the results of our World Women's Observatory's research in Latin America and the Caribbean. Share some testimonies, good practices and recommendations, and we want to foster collaboration between faith-based organizations, civil society, and policymakers in order to promote and facilitate respect for the girls and well-being of women, refugees, and migrants. Forced migration is a global issue that affects millions of people, particularly women, who face distinct challenges often shaped by gender-based discrimination, limited access to resources, and various forms of violence. Addressing the needs of women in forced migration settings requires a comprehensive approach to ensure their rights are protected, their needs met, and their voices heard. The key challenges faced by women in forced migration are: first, gender-based violence, including sexual violence, domestic abuse, and of course, trafficking. Lack of access to health care, including prenatal and postnatal care, as well as mental health support. Economic vulnerability, particularly those who are heads of households or caregivers, who often face challenges in accessing livelihood opportunities during forced migration. Then we have displacement of children. Women are often the primary caregivers of children, and the forced migration of families increases their caregiving burden. Frequently, women face legal and bureaucratic barriers to accessing asylum, legal protections, or refugee status. Cultural and social exclusion. Women in forced migration situations may face exclusion based on both their gender and their ethnicity, their race. That makes their integration, access for services, and finding support networks even more difficult. But how can we address all these challenges and promote changes? This is precisely what we will be discussing today. Based on some common knowledge, we are aware that we need humanitarian assistance and responses to be gender-sensitive and provide specific services for women, such as safe spaces for them, access to specific health services, and training for staff to recognize and address gender-based violence. As to the legal protections and advocacy, governments and international organizations must adopt and enforce legal frameworks that protect the rights of women in forced migration, such as ensuring that asylum systems recognize the gender-specific aspects of persecution and provide legal remedies for women facing gender-based violence. We need to empower women and promote leadership, ensuring their voices are heard in decision-making processes, providing leadership opportunities, and facilitating community involvement. As to psychological support, which is very, very important, listening to women and access to counseling and mental health services are beginning to be fundamental. Access to education and vocational training are crucial for empowering women and provide them with the skills that they will need to support themselves and their families, reducing thus their vulnerability. Collaboration and partnership with local communities, both in refugee settings and host countries, are vital to ensure the integration of women and address social exclusion. Before finishing and letting the panelists speak, allow me some minutes to present briefly our organization and explain why we are organizing this event. The World Union of Catholic Women's Organization, WUCWO, is a public association of the faithful that brings together worldwide Catholic women organizations or Catholic organizations represented by women. Since its founding in 1910, its mission has been to promote the presence, participation, and co-responsibility of Catholic women in church and in society in order to enable them to fulfill their mission of evangelization and work for human development. WUCWO represents more than 8 million women through its more than 100 member organizations present in more than 50 countries in the 5 continents. WUCWO has consultative status at ECOSOC, FAO, and the United Nations Human Rights Council. It has participatory status at the Council of Europe and is an official member of UNESCO. Our lines of action for this period, 2023-2027, are consolidating and developing our World Women's Observatory, promoting and defending religious freedom, working for economical conversion and, ecological conversion, it was a mistake, and alleviating food crisis, Then promoting family and parenthood, building a future with migrants and refugees, and that's why we're here today, and women's formation in synodality through a school for synodality. We have a school for synodality available to all of you. And then in 1921 we founded the World Women's Observatory with its motto, listening to transform lives. We had a very beautiful video, but we won't have time, but you can see it in the leaflets we show you. There's a QR code and you can take a look at it. And Observatory's aim is to give visibility to women, especially the most vulnerable, in order to generate changes at different levels, pastoral strategies by the church, synergies among civil organizations, states' public policies, and contributions to the international agenda that favor the integral human development and that of the families, communities, and peoples. Through our observatory, we're currently working on the African Network to End Violence and Discrimination Against Women, Migrants' Women Access to Justice, and wait a second, because thank you, Father, and Synodality in Women through WUCWO's School for Synodality. What are most recent projects in Latin America and the Caribbean are WUCWO's World Women's Observatory decided to tackle the issue of growing migration flows in Latin America and the Caribbean through 2 projects in the region, with the aim of understanding causes of women's migration in regions and the challenges and violation of their rights during migration journey and at destination. This is in order to facilitate changes in their favor. Through our projects, we try to better understand how to meet some of the challenges in network. Ana will talk about them later on. So thank you very much. This is a brief introduction, and then let's listen to our panelists, which is the most important thing.
We're grateful for your wonderful contribution to this event. Thank you so very much. We now have the privilege of welcoming Grace Staples of the Scalabrini International Network. Grace will offer us the opportunity to learn of the testimonies of Scalabrini missionaries. Grace, the floor is yours.
Hi, my name is Grace Staples, and I'm an intern for the Scalabrini International Migration Network. Today we participate in a discussion on forced migration, the effects of it, and the conflicts that cause it. And to this I say, where do we even start? The world is more globalized and interconnected than ever, yet we stand further and more at odds than one can imagine. In the US alone, the situation of refugees has become dire, with President Trump ending the temporary immigration program that protects thousands of Venezuelans on US soil. The federal agencies of the Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE for short, and Customs of Border Protection have had an expansion to their mandate and policy of detainment, where they can make forcible arrests to now include schools and hospitals. Migrant children now live in fear that every lesson they go to might have a border agent behind its door, and families must evaluate if life-saving care is worth a different life sentence. Worldwide, the situation does not improve. Armed conflict, persecution, climate crisis, and violence of all kinds have taken root in so many places and is so often left unaddressed. The Scalabrini International Migration Network has attempted in every way that it can to help alleviate the effects of forced displacement. And now we will have a video on our work from our Indonesia mission.
Hello everyone, I am Father Francisca Ngozi Uti, the director of Scalabrini Indonesia. As we are about to celebrate International Women's Day, I want to share to you the struggle of seafarers' wives whose husband has to sail in far distances in order to provide for their families and for the stability of global economy. We know that 90% of global economy runs through the sea, so the role of seafarers is very important. As the seafarers sail in far distances, what are the challenges faced by their wives back home? The first challenge that the seafarers' wives experience is loneliness. Loneliness is not only felt by seafarers themselves, but also felt by the seafarers' wives. The second challenge that the seafarers' wives experience is about lack of communication. As the seafarers sail in far distances, not all areas has internet or phone signal, so sometimes they can be hardly contacted by their wives. The third challenge that the seafarers' wives experience is how to take care of children. The absence of the husband is very difficult for the wife and also for the children. The last challenge that we have, that the seafarers' wives have, is the financial management. Of course, they are very grateful that their husbands send money to them, but the responsibility to manage the money is on their head. These are the challenges that the seafarers' wife face in this modern time. As we know the challenges, hopefully we can be aware of how much they struggle to make sure that the family is okay, and their support for the husband who sail far away to support the family and also for the stability of global economy. I conclude with this: no shipping, no shopping. Thank you, seafarers. Thank you, seafarers' wives.
Providing services in fields such as emergency relief, healthcare, legal assistance and job creation, education, and safety from human trafficking, we are proud to have helped thousands of migrants across our 90 missions in over 30 countries and even on international waters. Some of our most effective projects in combating the harsh realities of forced migration have been our initiatives in education. In Uganda, our mission is active in providing relief for South Sudanese women who have brought their families to escape the ongoing violence. 70% of these women are without their husbands and, by extension, have been left with no income, as it is culturally expected for women to stay at home. To combat this, our mission has begun skill training classes. From classes on sewing and fashion, to entrepreneurship and business, to English courses, the classroom has provided the ability for these women to have independence and autonomy in a situation which has deprived them of both for so long. When these classes are going on, we also offer daycare for their children so that they may participate without worrying about their children's safety and well-being. Even more than education, these classes increase feelings of self-worth and confidence. Women have reported feeling less helpless and more empowered. When you invest in education programs, you are not just investing in social capital or labor skills. You are investing in the person behind it. Our Uganda mission is a testament to how much good believing in others can do. And for such, we have a video from our Uganda mission.
Hello everyone, my name is Father John Kawisha from the congregation of the missionaries of St. Charles Scalabrinian Fathers, working here in Uganda in one of our missions, and we are the northern part of this country where we are implementing the project in the refugee settlement. And in our project, we are working with the women. Our project is focusing on the women of South Sudan. We have on board 3 projects that we're implementing to empower these women in the program of livelihood. So we have the project of tailoring and designing, or the so-called fashion and designing, where we are empowering 50 women who are beneficiaries of this project. It is really for them an important thing to do in their life, because they are the women who don't believe in themselves. They are the women who are the so-called have never been to school, but we are giving them this opportunity, even if they have never been to school, but we count on them that they can do something they can use their talent, they can also craft something, and the results are like that. And alongside the English school, we also offer to them the entrepreneurship course, so that they can also know how to implement and how to run their small businesses after getting the skills of fashion and designing. We are here to empower the women to make sure that they can also be the protagonists in the society where they are not counted. Thank you.
Next, in Catatumbo, Colombia, the outbreak of violent armed conflict has seen thousands of civilians displaced and devastated. In an attempt to help reconcile some of the most jarring effects of the conflict, the Scalabrini mission in the region has taken in many families fleeing the outbreaks of violence and given many of the women affected most severely the opportunity for education. Here, I have a written testimony from Father Rigoni, who has been working tirelessly with the mission to provide these classes and shelter from the fighting, which I will now read. I am a simple Scalabrini missionary who has given a voice to 80 women under our protection and that of the government. In their first day, 70 of them have taken a pedicure and manicure course, and another 10 the first digital marketing course, discovering for the first time the language of a computer and how to turn their words and their dreams into images. For us who have become older brothers on the road and witnesses of peace, these days have been a school of life. With them, we have transformed crying into dreams, despair into the seeds of tomorrow. We are learning the poor man's dictionary, how to invent in misfortunes the renewed motives of a rediscovered hope. It is an early Easter for us, where these women are our teachers, Mary of Calvary, Veronica, and Magdalene. As for St. John Baptist Scalabrini, this encounter is the encounter with the Christ of Emmaus, the Easter that anticipates the communal encounter with the whole of humanity. We discovered what Paul Hartley denounced in 1982 before the UN General Assembly when he denounced the fatigue of compassion. With these women of dignity and peace, we are betting on every person of goodwill. May this testimony appease all rancor, vengeance, and plans for death. From Catatumbo, we send you an embrace of peace and communion. Thank you.
I hope that all of you found that to be a profoundly moving experience and such a sign of hope that positive change is indeed possible in our world. Thank you so much for sharing the work accomplished by the Scalabrini Migrant Network. We're very grateful for your presence with us, Grace. Thank you. We'll next hear from Dr. Jeanette Rincon, who will share some of the work of Caritas Internationalis with us. Dr. Rincon?
Good morning, good afternoon to all. Thank you to the Scalabrini International Migration Network, to the Center of Migration Studies, and special thanks to Mónica Santamarina, President General of the World Union of Catholic Women's Organizations, for opening the space for us to share lived experiences of displaced and refugees women whose rights Caritas Internationalis advocates for. From our confederation, the next slide please. From our confederation, we recognize that 30 years after Beijing, many challenges remain to be faced, particularly regarding gender-based violence, human rights, environmental change, economic inequality, and poverty. Some situations have deepened and become more complex, and they challenge us in the light of our mission and identity. The next one, please. Caritas is a significant expression of the Catholic Church's commitment to the most vulnerable. It is a system based on international cooperation. It is organized from the most local level in parishes to the international level and bases its action on the social teaching of the Church. It puts the magisterium of Pope Francis into action. Francis called us first to listen with the heart, to listen attentively without judgments or a priori recommendations. Pope Francis also teaches us in his encyclical Laudato Si that everything is connected and the crisis of our world is both social and ecological. With him we work for the care of migrants based on the 4 verbs: welcome, promote, protect, and integrate. And we do so with the certainty that we are all pilgrims, so in the hope that in the end, good always triumphs over evil. Today we bring you 3 testimonies from women about the situation of women in forced mobility across 3 of the 5 continents where Caritas works. We begin in Asia, focusing on the situation of Rohingya women fleeing ethnic and religious violence. Rohingya is a taboo, forbidden word in many spaces. I will assume the commitment to fraternity previously shown by Pope Francis when he spoke it saying, "The presence of God today is also called Rohingya." The Rohingya are Muslim minority in predominantly Buddhist country. The government of Myanmar doesn't recognize them as citizens, considering them illegal immigrants from Bangladesh, despite many having lived in the region for generations. They suffer acts of violence specifically targeted to their community, such as murders, rapes, and village burnings. Discriminatory laws and policies reinforce the exclusion and persecution of this population. The violence they suffer is not isolated conflict, but part of the ethnic cleansing campaign. Caritas in Bangladesh and Thailand shelters, protects, and promotes them. Caritas Thailand cares for 110,000 of the 500,000 displaced persons in concentration camps, thanks to the work of 100 staff members and 282 volunteers. Caritas Bangladesh supports their integration by promoting their participation in building their own homes. From this story, we want to highlight the violence of nationalist and xenophobic regimes and political models as a cause of forced migration. Of migrants, women, and men in rebuilding their lives. Nothing about migrant women without migrant women. The second situation is indigenous women fleeing the effects of extractivism in my country, Venezuela and Amazonian, in Latin America and Caribbean. In the Amazon, the lung of the world, live approximately 400 indigenous peoples with 300 distinct languages. Amazon, with its people, is also a lung to ventilate our understanding of the world, of humanity, and of the creation. However, this cultural capital of our American continent and of humanity continues to be displaced and exterminated. We began as colonization 530 years ago, and is updated and deepened by the economic model that seeks comfort and accumulation at all costs. Oil and mining exploitation contaminates the imposing Amazonian rivers, irrationally deforests and destroys the habitats of unique fauna in the world and of our indigenous people, who are forced to displace and search security and livelihoods. Men are more likely to be recruited as cheap labor by these companies, but women and their children are the most impacted by being left behind or by displacing with high protection risks. They are subjected to all types of violence, gender-based violence, sexual. They are more likely to be victims of human trafficking for the purpose of sexual exploitation. Their use in drug trafficking and smuggling. Indigenous women are recognized as priority population by the humanitarian response plans. But these plans prioritize the defense of sexual and reproductive rights themselves, with the focus of aid being in application of contraceptive methods. There have been cases in which they are applied massively, including adolescents, or in a forced, deceptive manner mediated by the male who negotiates with the humanitarian agents, more concerned with meeting the goals they must present to the male officers than with the human and patrimonial impact of these activities. The consequence is that unique and unrepeatable populations and cultures, but with limited numbers, are threats, in danger of extinction. This is action with harm, and even if it is not recognized as such. Caritas is committed to acting with an empowerment approach in educational actions and livelihoods. It also advocates in humanitarian decision-making spaces to promote a balance in response to humanitarian needs. We maintain that as valuable as the protection of biodiversity, that is so much talked about, is the cultural diversity of humanity. The third testimony comes to us from Europe. Women mothers fleeing war in Ukraine. The fact that most Ukrainian refugees are children, 1/3 of all, and middle-aged women, allows us to observe that the feminization of migration. Irina Majeska from Caritas Ukraine would like to share with us the testimony of Angela, a 28-year-old young mother from Luhansk who fled to protect herself from the war with her 5-year-old daughter, Emma. Emma experienced many horrors, and as a result, she got enuresis, although she didn't have such problem before. She says, I found advertisement for strawberry picking and was invited for an interview and promised good working conditions, but the reality was different. 12 hours of work without breaks, constant supervision, fenced plantation with barbed wire. They didn't provide food for workers, took our passports, promising to return them after the strawberry picking was finished. I received my passport back only after I told that I would go to the police. I left that job and with that promised payment went back to Ukraine. From this narrative, we want to highlight the reality, not only of the feminization of migration, but also the revictimization and migrant motherhood. The mother-child bond is so strong that it becomes almost tangible and takes on a physical form, like a third person, also subject to rights. Policies aimed to welcoming, protecting, promoting, and integrating should consider it as such. As the core of the three testimonies, we want to highlight the challenge we are facing to continue these response actions, especially at the local level. The abrupt decline in resources in international cooperation. It is necessary to continue raising awareness among states and societies about the reality that emerged strongly during the COVID-19 epidemic and that was highlighted by the Pope that night on March 27th, 2020 in St. Peter's Square. We are all in the same boat. The best thing that each person, each organization, each country, each continent can do for itself is to help the most vulnerable and encourage them to resilience. Finally, no less important, to carry out our actions with a spirit of hope. So when hope is not only given financing, it is also being close, listening, offering words and messages of encouragement, encouraging belief that another world is possible, and together we can build it. The last slide, please. I close with an invitation to echo or take advantage of this concrete action of Caritas Internationalis in them for greater participation and development of women. The Weavers of Hope Award. You can learn more about it and support this initiative. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rincon, for your clear description of the vitally important work and emphasizing the need for solidarity with all of our sisters in this world. We shall now hear from Sister Francisca Ngozi Uti, Executive Director of the Center for Women's Studies and Interventions in Nigeria. Sister, the floor is yours.
Okay, I'm going to be talking about from the Nigerian perspective. The International Organization for Migration defines forced migration as a migratory movement which, although the drivers can be devised, involves force, compulsion, or coercion. Over the years, Nigeria has experienced situations leading to forced movement of people from their habitual places or residences to other locations. These situations, which ranges from the outcome of armed conflicts, banditry, insurgency, and climate change, has resulted in the displacement of millions of people. As of November 2021, the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees reported that about 3 million Nigerians have been pushed out of their homes in parts of northeast Nigeria and the Middle Belt, but also increasingly also in northwest Nigeria. Similarly, in 2022, Nigeria faced an unprecedented flooding that ravaged about 33 states of the Federation, leading to the displacement of over 1.4 million persons and the death of about 600 persons. Also in 2021, a report revealed that women and girls make up to at least 75% of approximately 2.5 million people displaced across the country's northeast. Nigeria is also home to refugees as it hosts over 85,000 refugees and asylum seekers. Most refugees come from some 78,000 women, men, and children fled violence in Cameroon. In all this, women face challenges as they are exposed to violent acts such as rape, killings, abduction, and forced marriage. The migration experience of Nigerian women migrants is dynamic and underscores the interplay of history, culture, and socioeconomic factors that shape their pattern and means of migrating. The migration experiences reflect a shift from traditional perceptions of women as passive to actively be involved and contributing to economies of Nigeria through remittances. While migration offers opportunities for economic empowerment and social mobility, it also exposes women to vulnerabilities such as exploitation, trafficking, and discrimination. Their experiences play a role in shaping policy development. Thus, this calls for advocacy for continuous strengthening of existing gender-responsive policies that recognizes their needs and vulnerabilities. The Center for Women's Studies and Intervention, in its commitment to improving the quality of life of every woman, pays significant attention to the dynamics and conditions of women migrants through direct reintegration of victims of trafficking, livelihood support to refugees, advocacy for the protection of the rights of migrants, initiating and encouraging and engaging in collaborative networks of non-state actors for enhanced strategic advocacy. It is important to understand the narrative of Nigerian women in migration. Change in perspective. Migration used to be male-dominated. However, there has been an increasing number of women migrants who had traditionally stayed at home while men took all the risks to migrate in search of economic opportunities. These women, whether married or single, are now migrating independently to meet their own economic needs and not only to join a family member or husband. They could leave their spouse at home to care for the children, thus redefining traditional gender roles. However promising the migration experience for women migrants may be, stories of Nigerian women migrants have been featured in narratives on vulnerability or presumed criminality, particularly sexual exploitation and trafficking. In all of the historical forms, the narrative surrounding women migration was overlooked. Migration for numerous Nigerian women migrants, particularly in the colonial and post-colonial eras, emerged as a means to increase their access to education, economic opportunities, financial empowerment. Within the internal migration, the two most prominent push and pull factors for Nigerian women migrants were economic enhancement and marriage. However, the desperation has also pushed them into the hands of a vast illegal network facilitating their border crossing. Thus, over the last few decades, a significant shift has been observed as many young Nigerian women now embark on irregular migration to Europe through the Sahara Desert and the Mediterranean Sea, and other forms of irregular migration, including overstay of their stay permit and unofficial change of status. The cultural perception. Women migrating impacts are impacted by cultural perception and traditional family system and societal norms. Gendered social norms play a role concerning the acceptance of an expectation on women which affect women's actions and activities, impose limited behavior alternatives, and force women into a fairly narrow range of roles and statuses. This is because traditionally, women in Nigeria and around the continent are trained, expected to look after the home and how to be a good wife, while men are the breadwinner. There are other traditions that have also affected the way women migrate now in Nigeria. Contributions of Nigerian migrants. It is noteworthy that Nigerian women migrants contribute significantly as their men counterparts to national development and the sustenance of their direct families. Female migrants, in turn, have significantly contributed to the global domestic workforce. They constitute 73.4% of the international migrant domestic workers. I'm trying to skip some of those areas just for time. Then we have consequences of irregular migration in Nigeria. Irregular migration has spelled doom for a substantial number of Nigerian female migrants who have reported experiences of now, one of the things I was supposed to be doing is to talk about connection with the civil society network on migration and development. In 2026, together with Augustinian Center for Advocacy, Justice and Peace, CWSI established and registered civil society network on migration and development with the Corporate Affairs Commission, and it is a platform for information and knowledge sharing, capacity building and mobilization for better advocacy in the intersection of migration and development within the Nigerian system and beyond. It provides a space for collective action, strengthened dialogue, and collaboration among civil society organizations. Today, it has a membership of over 350 organizational and affiliate members, including NGO, CBO, FBO, Migrants and Returnees Association. Some of the activities, most of the things we do on the platform of the CSO NetMed is activities of network span research, advocacy, direct services to migrants, facilitating CSO's engagements, sensitization and awareness creation on the evils of forced and irregular migration. Capacity development to strengthen civil society organizations' participation in the national migration governance. You know, the migration dialogue day, which the government is engaged in, we bring together those civil society organizations so that they take a stand and present their decisions and what they want the government to work on and how they will protect migrants in the country. And then establishment of the first Center for Migration Studies in the Nigerian University, which is the Nnamdi Azikiwe University in Awka. Research on migration irregular routes in northern Nigeria towards Europe. Research on the impact of the withdrawal of Sahel states from ECOWAS on regional migration governance and integration. Provision of livelihood support to returnees from irregular migration. Advocacy on the protection of deported migrants from human rights abuse. Promotion of non-state actors' participation in the national migration governance and coordination mechanism. Hosting of the Civil Society Forum, annual events for the harnessing and mainstreaming non-state actors, insight into the national migration dialogue and governance. And then, finally, we try to review national policies and migration instruments. Well, there's more the way forward, but the picture, the pictures are done. The pictures are just to show some of the things we do, like the IDPs who are in the camps. We try to provide for them. We try to train them on their human rights and how to advocate their human rights in particular, because since they are illegal, irregular migrants, some of them don't know they even have rights in their host countries. So we try to educate them on their rights as citizens, even though they are not really citizens they are not Nigerian citizens, especially those of them who have fled from the neighboring country of Cameroon. Thank you very much. So,
Inspiring and informative remarks about the great work accomplished and the promise of change realized. We're grateful for your presence with us here today. Thank you very much. Now, you heard Mónica earlier mention WUCWO's World Women's Observatory, and we are fortunate now to hear from Ana Martiarena, Project Director of
the Observatory. Thank you so much, Ana, for your very informative
presentation
on the work of the WWO with regard to its work with refugee
and migrant women.
That's okay. Thank you, Maribel. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm really honored to be here with all of you, and I'm especially proud of these panelists. I will now summarize the two projects we are carrying out which focus on the realities faced by migrant women in the Latin American and Caribbean region. In October 2023, we began this first project, which has already been completed with the support of the Latin American Caribbean Episcopal Council. Its objectives were to study the causes of female migration in the region, to examine the challenges they face during the process, and to assess their real possibilities of integration in the place of destination. The second project, related to migrant women, began in November 2023, thanks to the collaboration with the Hilton Foundation, and it is still ongoing. We set out to understand the access to justice and the violation of rights of migrant women arriving in Mexico. Additionally, we seek to influence the network in some areas where there is still a gap to be addressed. Through these two projects, we listen to experts and leaders of organizations that assist migrant women in Latin America in order to reflect about the main reasons for women's migration in the region, the actions needed to mitigate the difficulties they face, and the topics that still require further study. We also listen to experts and leaders of organizations that assist migrant women in Mexico, so to understand the challenges and pending gaps, and how we can work as a network to guarantee greater access to justice for migrant women. And finally, we listen to migrant women in Mexico to learn about their causes of migration and the issues related to their access to justice when they arrive in Mexico. So, what did the organization's leader in the region tell us? First of all, I would like to say that we contacted almost 100 representatives of the main organizations in 18 countries that assist migrant populations throughout the region, to hear about their experiences in assisting migrant women on a daily basis. 55% of them representing church organizations and 45% other organizations. We noticed that there are various cultural, economic, and social reasons for women to migrate. We found that the main reasons have to do with the desire to change their lifestyle, indicated by 42%, to escape poverty 31%, and 30% due to political instability and insecurity. We also asked them what they thought about key improvements to better assist and support migrant women. They told us that psychological support is the most important, followed by job opportunities, humanitarian and legal aid, and so on. Finally, we wanted to know which were, in their opinion, the topics of interest that required further study in this area. 27% of the respondents let us know that the topic that still needs further exploration is gender-based violence, followed by psychological support, social integration, network support, and family integration, among others. Last week, we held a workshop in Mexico City, where we listened to more than 35 people from different areas who assist migrant women. They provided us some valuable insights of the Mexican migratory reality. Let's see what they told us. As for the challenges and pending gaps, we heard that the main ones have to do with lack of resources, fewer staff members in shelters due to funding cuts, current uncertainty, political indifference to organized crime, which so often strikes the most vulnerable women, and weakness of NGO structures. We have also been told about some specific proposals for networking. Among them, the most interesting ones are improving knowledge of statistics and updated information, sharing protocols and best practices among NGOs, launching an awareness campaign for the whole society, not only for women, but also give visibility to the organizations that assist women, strengthening the legal capacities of the network, and strengthening the self-care on the staff in charge of migrant care. However, none of this would make sense if we had not listened to the real protagonists, the migrants themselves. For this reason, last year we visited 18 shelters in Mexico and listened to 234 migrant women. Let's watch a short video about our experience visiting them.
Trayendo 3 menores de edad y siendo mujer, pues fue muy difícil la entrada. Hubieron muchas complicaciones, tanto de migración como albergues, o sea, pues no hay mucha información. El proyecto primeramente es porque nos extendemos un poquito más de tiempo en el albergue, pues porque no tenemos ahorita dónde ir, después se nos dificulta lo que es la casa, buscar dónde vivir. El trabajo creció, uno de los impedimentos más grandes, aún teniendo estos papeles, aún siendo legal, aún teniendo todos los requisitos, cumpliendo con todo, pues ha sido una gran barrera para nosotros.
Of the 234 women's stories heard, 42% are from Central America, 20% from the Andes and the Southern Cone, 9% from the Caribbean, and 29% are internal migrants. The final destination of most of them is the United States, followed by Mexico, representing 24%. It is interesting to note that most of them travel with their children as well as with their parents or other family members. Only 19% of them travel alone. As for the reasons for migration, the main ones were armed conflicts in their countries of origin, followed by economic problems, persecution, and violence. 65% of migrant women recognized that their rights had been violated. Even so, only 10% of them filed a complaint, and when they do it, most of them do not have any support. In the case of those who decide not to file a complaint, it is mainly out of fear and mistrust due to their own condition as migrants. Also because they don't know how to do it, and a smaller percentage because they want to continue their migratory route. Note that the main obstacle to access to justice, as expressed by them, is economic. Even so, the lack of appropriate legal information and discrimination from the side of authorities is also very significant. As for the improvements that they propose to increase access to justice, 32% of them mention greater public legal support. 29% express the need for state workers to be better trained, and 23% believe that awareness campaigns is the key. Now the big question is, why is it so important for us to listen to all these people? And the real answer is that we listen to them to discern what we can change and where we can make an impact with the networks, with the local networks. What we learned is what we definitely need. More training, more funding, more incidents and advocacy in such a complex moment. More networking, working together between congregations and lay women organizations, creating long-lasting alliances. More listening. Last Saturday, we visited Café Min, a model shelter in Mexico City led by Sister Magdalena Silva. the Josephine Sisters are working on a model of comprehensive care together with other congregations and civil society actors. At the end of our beautiful visit, we asked Sister Magda, what can we do for you as World Women's Observatory from WUCWO? And she only answered, listen to migrants, keep listening. And last but not least, we need give more visibility to the invisibles, both women and NGOs. Anyone can help make visible those who seem to have no voice. Become, please, an ambassador of invisible women and be part of our social campaign, #InvisibleNoMore. Together, we can make their voices heard and their stories told. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ana, for a very informative presentation on the work of the World Women's Observatory with regard to its work, particularly with refugee and migrant women. Thank you. We're now pleased to hear from Msgr Marco Formica, who will share with us some of the important work of the Permanent Observer Mission of the Holy See at the United Nations in New York, where he serves as Counsellor. Monsignor, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon. It's an honor to represent the Holy See at this important discussion on the challenges faced by women in forced migration and the collective responsibility we bear, all of us, to ensure respect for their dignity and their protection. Forced migration remains one of the defining crises of our time. Environmental disasters, extreme poverty, persecution, and indeed armed conflicts drive millions from their homes each year. Women and girls bear the brunt of this crisis, facing heightened risks of trafficking, sexual violence, exploitation, and discrimination. Despite increased awareness, the true scope and nature of human trafficking remain largely invisible. And its impact on migrant and refugee women is devastating. Before we proceed, please forgive me if I express a scruple about terminology. We are today talking about forced migration. While at times forced migrants may fulfill the criteria to be considered refugees, this is not always the case. Our discussion will inevitably see us considering both categories, migrants and refugees, and in fact in all the distinguished panelists this point was very clear. Neither should we ignore the tragedy of so many who are internally displaced at this time and find themselves in truly desperate conditions. But returning to our theme, today I wish to focus on two key areas. The first is how faith-based organizations can support the Holy See's effort to protect migrant women and girls, and indeed the second, the Holy See's advocacy for international policies safeguarding women in forced migration. The faith-based organizations are uniquely placed to play a crucial role in responding to the needs of migrant and refugee women. For those organizations within the Catholic tradition, their work is deeply rooted in respect for human dignity, solidarity, and compassion. Indeed, the Catholic Church and its affiliated organizations, such as Caritas Internationalis, the Jesuit Refugee Service, the International Union of Superiors General, Charita Cum, Arise, the Santa Marta Group, I've seen Sisters from America, yeah, she is here, to name just some, and indeed WUCWO, which is now hosting us in this beautiful event, are at the forefront of providing shelter, healthcare, education, legal assistance, trauma counseling to displaced women. Religious sisters are particularly instrumental in identifying and rescuing victims of trafficking while offering pastoral care and rehabilitation. So how can faith-based organizations work with the Holy See? First, by strengthening collaboration. No single entity can address this crisis alone. Collaboration is essential. The Holy See urges organizations to work together with one another, with governments if it's possible, with the civil society, to create a comprehensive and coordinated response to forced migration, respecting the principle of subsidiarity. It is essential that this collaboration takes place at the most effective level to implement change. While speaking of collaboration, allow me a brief excursus to speak about one particular model proposed by the Santa Marta Group. This was founded at the explicit request of Pope Francis and is a faith-based coalition uniting law enforcement, civil society, and the Catholic Church to combat human trafficking. It connects global institutions with grassroots efforts, ensuring that victims receive comprehensive support and traffickers are brought to justice. It is a model that can achieve much simply by putting people in touch and coordinating efforts. Second, by offering direct humanitarian assistance. Organizations are uniquely positioned to provide essential services in areas where governmental resources may be limited or even absent. This can take many forms, including provision of shelter, counseling, healthcare, access to education, and training. And third, by advocating for systematic change. Although many voices are there, we must speak as one in raising awareness and challenging unjust policies. We must push for stronger protections for migrant and refugee women at both national and international levels. The voice of the Holy See in the international arena is amplified and strengthened by the amazing work that is done by the Church present everywhere on the ground. About the Holy See advocacy for policies that protect women and girls in the forced migration, the Holy See is a steadfast supporter of the Global Compact for Safe, Orderly and Regular Migration, GCM, a framework that upholds human dignity, solidarity and the common good. This key document, adopted in 2018, recognizes migration as a human reality that requires international cooperation to ensure protection, particularly for the most vulnerable, including women, children, and victims of trafficking. To praise the implementation of the GCM, at 4-year intervals, the International Migration Review Forum is convened. And at its 2022 session, the Holy See was one of the handful of voices seeking to resist backsliding on commitments made in the compact itself. While we were able to hold the line on that occasion, subsequent attempts in the committee sessions of the General Assembly have been less effective, leading to a watering down of obligations. We shall see what happens in the 2026 edition of the implementation of the GCM. Of course, we can't address forced migration without considering the underlying factors that give rise to it. While the GCM does not establish a prior right to remain, the Holy See urges nations to address the root causes of forced migration conflict, poverty, and environmental crisis. While endorsing the GCN commitment to human rights and shared responsibility, the HRDC insists that migration policies respect cultural identities and the dignity of every migrant. In short, at the international level, the HRDC advocates for a human-centered approach to migration, one that prioritizes dignity, solidarity, and justice. This recognizes that women migrants are particularly vulnerable to exploitation, to trafficking, including for sexual exploitation, forced labor, and other forms of modern slavery. The HRDC supports the UN Global Plan of Action to combat trafficking in persons, while calling the strong moral and ethical commitments from the international community in order to eradicate the demand for sexual exploitation that fuels trafficking, protect women from commodification, as highlighted by Pope Francis in his statements on human trafficking, and ensure long-term support for victims, including their full social reintegration. A point of particular concern for the HRDC is that the victims of trafficking should not find themselves criminalized and so victimized for a second time. Pope Francis reminds us that human trafficking is not inevitable. It is a moral and social evil that must be confronted with decisive action. As is stated on the World Day of Prayer Against Human Trafficking, we must listen to the voices of those suffering and act to eliminate trafficking, particularly women and children who are exploited in their workplace and sex trade. Ladies and gentlemen, forced migration is not just a policy issue. It's a human crisis that demands urgent moral and political action. The HRDC has constantly called for all actors to work together: governments, international organizations, and faith-based organizations. A combined and concerted effort is needed in order to end human trafficking and hold perpetrators accountable, to protect migrant women, respect their dignity and ensure their fundamental rights and freedoms, and advocate for policies that prioritize compassion, inclusion, and justice. Let me conclude with some words of Pope Francis. He tells us each migrant has a name, a face, and a story. Let us not turn away, but instead walk together in solidarity and hope. And also reminds us that we cannot achieve equality while some women and girls are treated as objects to be used and discarded. Their suffering must move us to act. May we continue this journey with courage, compassion, and faith, working together to build a world where every woman and girl can live in freedom and dignity. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Msgr, for your eloquent and informative remarks. We're so very grateful for your time and expertise. Thank you for sharing that with us. Well, now we have a little bit of time for some questions and answers or comments. Please raise your hand and wait to be called on. Direct your question or comment to a specific speaker, and please be brief and concise, mindful that our time is quite limited. So I think in view of the microphone, if you're called upon, please come to the front and we'll have to give you our little migrating microphone. So, all right. Anyone?
Dermis.
Dermis.
It's not so much a question, but a testimony that I'd like to share. Thank you to President Mónica Santamarina for giving us some time to do this. I am a Catholic, a wife, a mother, a lay minister in my parish in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. It's a parish that's really active in social justice. And I'm sharing with you some of our responses to the current attacks to migrants stemming from the executive orders of the current administration. We are motivated by St. Teresa of Avila's words, looking compassionately on this world and doing good. Therefore, along with the organization New Sanctuary Movement, we have participated in Know Your Rights training to take information to the community about their rights. We have learned of situations already brought on by ICE in our area and other scenarios that we need to be prepared for as we minister with our migrant sisters and brothers. We have always accompanied them to court dates, provided interpretation and translation, childcare, orientation, education, and prayerful presence in solidarity. But now that's even more important than ever. We're also learning to protect people in our churches because the memo that protected our churches, our places of worship, has been rescinded, meaning that people like ICE could come into our places of worship to arrest. So we are learning about that and we are sharing information with the community. We're also educating women on how to understand and fill out in loco parentis forms. In the unfortunate event that they are deported or separated from their children, there will be appointed people that will make decisions for their kids. For many women migrants, of course, the main concern and cause of stress is the well-being of their children. I work in healthcare. So now what I'm hearing is that women are especially concerned for their children with developmental delays and medically complex needs, whose treatments would be interrupted with any forced change. I hear about families being very careful, and they say this just like that. Tenemos que tener mucho cuidado, which means missing important health appointments, limiting activities for children, and living with added stress that creates even more physical and emotional vulnerability. I'm also affiliated with Discerning Deacons, a network of Catholic women in ministry, where lay and religious women have been involved with women migrants for decades. But as a collective, we recognize that the present times require a very public, continued commitment, speaking truth and acting in love and mercy, as Christ modeled for us. Listening to women migrants, and we heard this from everyone here, listening to women migrants, how they cope and what they value in terms of support, guides our actions with them and for them. In Los Angeles, my friend Rosa Bonilla is working at the Dolores Mission, and there they too have been conducting workshops. They have also instituted solidarity networks within the community, so people are looking out for one another in the workplace and in places that are vulnerable to violence. They have equated some of this walking around of ICE, these threats, as psychological torture. That's how it's felt. And community leaders sometimes feel that what they can do is not enough. In Miami, my co-director of Discerning Deacons, Ellie Hidalgo, and her parish, Corpus Christi, have also been involved in Know Your Rights training. They have partnered with Catholic Charities and Catholic Legal Services. We've heard about collaboration, so here are some examples. To help the migrant population in Miami. In Miami, there are many Venezuelans who were protected by TPS, Temporary Protected Status, but that was recently canceled. In all of these scenarios, emotional support has been as important as education on rights and providing basic needs of food and clothing. Again, another theme we heard. How they feel in supportive forums has also been a part of our response to this crisis. Women of Discerning Deacons strive to be God's presence, reaching out to the most vulnerable and unjustly treated. We talk about God's narrative. God's narrative is not one of exclusion, not one of hatred, not one of fear. We recognize the dignity of migrants, human beings, our sisters, made to the likeness of God. That is God's narrative. So we're putting together a series called Preaching God's Narrative. And the first part of this series on April 9th is on the theme, The God Who Was Condemned and Refused to Condemn, Deepening Paths for Solidarity with Migrant and the Detained. Everyone is welcome. Finally, thank you to all of you who are working with and for the migrant population, especially women and children. May the Lord's light and wisdom and our Blessed Mother continue to guide you. May we strengthen our relationship with God and one another in this Jubilee year of hope. Of hope. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your very powerful witness and your very practical, necessary actions. Thank you so very much. Now, our President General of the World Union of Catholic Women's Organizations, Mónica Santamarina, has a few words for us.
Well, almost everything has been said, but not everything has been done. As far as Monsignor said, we're in a real crisis, and we need to act now. There's a lot of people suffering. I'm Mexican, and I see them. I see the desperation of women, of families getting separated, the fear with which they live. I see how people are being more and more discriminated, and the society is more polarized. Migrants are not criminals. Migrants are working for their life, for the life of the children, for their safety. So why do we discriminate them? Why do we feel that we can judge them? We just have to help them. We're part of the problem. So I think we should all get together. This is a crisis. This is a way. Pope Francis has always talked about migrants as we have to be the good Samaritans. That we have to see the face of Christ in every migrant coming, in every migrant that comes near us. And there's so many ways to help them. But we talked about them today, to listen to them, to work in network. It's very important. We cannot resolve this problem alone. We have to work together as whatever we are, civil society organizations, NGOs, of course religious organizations, and many of us are here. We have to work together. It is time to solve this crisis together. And because for the world, for the whole world, and this is a world crisis. Believe me, I talk a lot with people from all over the world, and they tell me what they are suffering everywhere around. So we have to do something together. We are in the Jubilee year. We have to be hopeful. We know where God is with us, and we're gonna be able to make a change. Of course, we will. We are in the synodality period, and synodality has taught us to listen to one another, to discern, to work together, to dialogue, and to respect the other one, whether his condition, his nationality, his race, his situation. So I invite you to go and work together. We can do many things, and let's be hopeful, because it's a difficult time, but difficult times is when they require brave people, generous people, and I'm sure you are because you're here with us. So thank you for being here. And then I want to give you just a small certificate of appreciation to everybody. So I'm gonna start with the youngest one. I love to have young people here. And let me tell you that this event was, at the beginning was organized, well, it was organized with the Scalabrinians. They couldn't make it. They're being desperate. They have a lot of problems you can understand. So they told us, please do the job for us. And of course, Grace, which is at the Scalabrini Center, made a great job. So Grace, thank you. Don't remember always to be working for them. Then, I don't know, it's not any orderly, it's Ana. Ana, congratulations, it's the greatest, how do you say, you are the project director of the Observatory one can ever have. And then, Jeanette, thank you. Your English was great. Okay, great. That's Sister Francisca. Sister Francisca now was very orderly, but she's great. She's always great. She does such a lot of things. She helps us a lot in Africa with our projects. Thank you, Sister, from the heart. Thank you for all the things you do and how you help us. Thank you. And we'll make use. But tell Father Murphy, because he's substituting Father Murphy that got, Msgr Murphy that got sick. But you did a great job, and you will have your certificate. Thank you to all. Very good. Close the event.
So of course we want to again thank our sponsors for today, and our wonderful, wonderful panelists. And of course, we want to thank you for joining us and for your interest in the work revolving around the challenges of refugee and migrant women. The work of helping this fragile group has been inspiring, but we know well that so much more remains to be done. We leave today cognizant of the continued need for education, advocacy, and prayer for our sisters forced to leave their homes, often with little more than hope. We are so grateful to our panelists who have been wonderfully informative, and our sponsors who make all this possible, and we thank you, all of you gathered here, for the gifts of your presence and interest in this vitally important issue. Thank you very much. Please recall we need to exit the room promptly because another group is coming in, and thank you again for being here with us. This concludes our presentation.